Hey friends, family. About a week ago, I found about 70 worms and I did a post about making a bed for those worms because I know some of the benefits, primarily because I came from a fishing family. So I know all of the good stuff that they're filled with. However, when reading about David, it made me wonder, what would make David say, "I'm a worm and not a man"? And what did David maybe not even realize at the time that he said that? Now, people tend to remember David for two things: Goliath and Bathsheba. So isn't it just like us to know the great, hear the great, but remember the dirt and the scandal? Which maybe is a good thing, that we remember that, because purely not to hold it against him, but to remember that despite the dirt, he was still known as a man after God's own heart. So why was he a man after God's own heart? Well, there were 7 things that come to mind, and one of those is faith. His faith. Who else had the strength and the faith to stand before a giant? There were well-known swordsmen and great warriors at the time, but little David, with his sling and a stone, stood before the Lord. Stood before the Lord, saying, I trust in you. I trust in what you can do. And he took a step in a leap of faith and stood before that giant with just a sling and a stone. So that shows a great faith that I don't know that many people have. His trust in God, despite the fact that Saul was always after him and a threat to his own life, and he had the opportunity to kill Saul, he trusted God to make it right, and he didn't seek vengeance. So that showed his trust in God, his love, not just the love that we have for people, one another, but a love that he showed for his enemies, because he showed mercy to Saul. And then also his humility. He won many battles and would have been known and celebrated for defeating Goliath, and God had a plan for that for him, but he gave all the glory to God. He didn't take it for himself. His integrity, despite his flaws, when he realized he did something wrong, and you can't fix it a lot of times, not really. There's always something that can't be repaired, like when he was with Bathsheba and he sent her husband to his death. He can't fix that, but when he realized what he did, when he really saw it, because sometimes we don't see things while we're in the middle of it, but when he realized what he did what he could to try to make things right. So not to say that we should do things, because you can't fix some things can't be fixed, but we can not make excuses for our actions, and we can do what we can to make things right. Forgiveness, well, he asked for forgiveness sorry, I was looking at my bobber. He asked for forgiveness, and he had a contrite heart, and he came before the Lord with anything that he felt that he had done wrong. And his worship, that was another one of those 7 things, his worship. He was the psalmist. He never stopped worshiping, and wrote many beautiful psalms. But in Psalm 22, that's where he said, "I am a worm and not a man." Despite the fact that he was known as a man after God's own heart, despite his many battles that were won, he still had low moments. And the biggest low that he had was when he was in agony because he felt God had abandoned him. So he said, I am a worm and not a man. And while a worm is considered a lowly creature, down digging in the dirt and primarily filled with poop, as you will know if you bait a hook, something that he didn't realize at that time, and is a question that's been asked, is can life even exist without worms? Not only because they aerate the ground by digging their tunnels and they help reduce flooding, but they leave an average of 7 to 13 times more potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus than they consume. And they also help bind calcium, phosphorus, and sulfur, or iron and sulfur, sorry. They help bind calcium, iron, and sulfur to soil particles, which calcium, phosphorus, iron, and calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and sulfur are 4 of the top 7 minerals found in the human body. So they're building blocks for our DNA, and they help protect your cells from disease. And it's like, so even when he felt the lowest that he could imagine at that time, the thing that he was comparing himself to gives more, one, than a lot of people do. But it's God saying, I'm in it and through everything. So if I can put in 7 to 13 more times more than I take, we're just doing the job of a worm. And a worm doesn't have the Holy Spirit and the power of God within him. So can you imagine what you are capable of